What's going on, YouTubers and MicroGrinders? Alton from MicroGrinder Poker School, back with another live play video of me grinding 5-0 on Ignition Casino. So this is my third session back playing on Ignition Casino. And for those of you that haven't seen how well I'm doing so far, let's take a look. Completing here is marginal. We got 31-0 and we have a 38-31. Getting decent pot odds. I think we can complete in the big blind simply because of the through action. I'm not in love with it, but I don't hate completing here. And now that we really don't have any equity, we're done with the hand. So just started the session. You'll notice 9 hands here, 4 hands here, 12 hands here, and 8 hands here. I'm pretty much card dead for the most part. So I've only pre-flop raised once down here with ace queen. Everything else has been just random junk like this. But anyways, here's how everything is going so far. Played 461 hands so far, and I'm up $19. So yeah, things are going well. I played 5-0 first session. Second session I played a combination of 10-0 and 5-0. And this session I'm just playing some 5-0. I may put some 10-0 tables on, but I figured I'd just play some 5-0 for the fun of it. So let me pull my PT4 database over there. I am using the Ace Poker Solutions Bovada card catcher. This allows me to use Poker Tracker 4, doing the trial, testing it out. 4-6 off, this is below my button opening range, so just fold. 4-6 suited, probably something I can open. I'm looking to open something like a range similar to this, but I'm not opening with a lot of weak offsuited hands. I'd rather it be suited than offsuited. But yeah, so I'm giving this a test trial just to see how it goes, see how I like it, because I've been using Hold'em Indicator. And I've heard reports where the hand histories are not working that well. And I can contest that they're not working well because I just tried to download them. And here's one of them, and it literally cuts off in the middle of a hand. So there's some issues with it. People have been complaining about it on 2+2. So I figured I'd give this a try and, see how well I liked using Poker Tracker 4 over Hold'em Indicator. And I do like that it inputs the information automatically. The one thing I don't like is if you go to the stat, so it gives everybody on each table, player 6, player 5, does the underscore, and gives them a random set of characters here to delineate who is who. And so it's tracking all these random hands from people I really don't care about because it's anonymous. So I wish that they set this up so it didn't track them, but I understand that it has to track them. But just understand that it has to give them a unique character, something that's not in the database every time you play every single session. It's not like you're playing somewhere else where everybody has a unique username, and you're going to encounter them more than one session. So I do understand this, but it's kind of annoying because it is tracking them even when hands that I'm not playing in. So you know what, it is what it is. Pocket jacks, pretty standard open. Pocket queens, finally getting some hands to play. So yeah, so let's get into it. Maybe we'll get into some interesting spots. This is very interesting here. So this guy opens 4x. He looks to be playing aggressive, but it's only 7 hands. And here's going to be standard c-bet. I'm just going to call because we have a fish in the hand as well. Interesting turn card. And on this semi-wet, semi-dry board texture, I mean, there's a gutter straight draw. There's a diamond draw. I think we can just check call. Keep the fish in the pot as well. Yeah, we don't like diamonds, but as I was supposed to say, the likelihood that diamonds can hit on the turn is 18%. But of course it does hit, so I guess there is some merit to 3-betting there or raising. Now, when everybody checks, I think we need to go for some value on the river. I'm just going to do a half pot size bet, try to get called by somebody. I'm not going to try to make it too big. I think about a half pot size bet is just fine to ensure I get called by pair of 10s or pair of jacks. And let's see what he had. Let's see what he opened up 4x. Jack king off. So and he leaves the table, unfortunately. So I definitely was going to take a note of what he was opening. Ace deuce off, pretty standard open in a small blind. I was going to take a note and hopefully stayed on the table. So I'd get an idea of what he is making it 4x pre-flop, and of course he just looks like the fish got tilted and left, and he left the table. So it's unfortunate. Now, could I have gotten away with a 3-bet? In a vacuum, yeah, 3-betting there definitely is profitable. But in terms of long-term, not knowing anything about anybody at all, I prefer to play a little more conservative and then generate some reads and then start adjusting it. So, you can argue for 3-betting in that spot. You can argue for just overcalling behind. The merits of 3-betting is that you're going to maximize value with your hand, and you're going to maximize your equity by getting heads up against a single opponent. The downside against a 4x against 5-L, where people tend to be more passive, is that you could potentially be getting your money in bad if the person is willing to 4-bet and get it in. The merits of flat calling is that it's a more conservative choice against a complete unknown, and it also keeps the fish in the pot. So we kept this opponent in the pot to get some additional money out of him potentially post flop. So, like I said, it can go both ways. You can argue for one, you can argue for the other. The more that I've learned and the more that I've studied poker, the more that I realized is that there's not one exact way to do everything. A lot of coaches like to say, well, you need to be doing this in this situation, you need to be doing that in that situation, and if you're not doing that, then that's a bad play. I disagree, especially when you're playing anonymous poker. Let's see, this guy's playing a 46-15, so he's a loose passive opponent. He's not raising that often, so I'm going to assume he has a stronger range. Even though we're out of position, I think that if we can assume that a loose passive opponent is going to be raising a really strong range and limping a wide range, so I think we can call here for implied odds, even though we are out of position. And that's just basically an analysis done off of population rates that loose passive opponents are going to be limping a wide range, then going to be raising a value range. And so we can expect to get paid off when we hit our set against them on a regular basis. And I like to use the 15-1 rule. So we need to get around 45 big blinds. We need around half of his stack to make it profitable in the long run. So I don't mind set mining there, even though we are out of position. But getting back to what I was originally saying is that I'm not the type of poker coach and poker player now, the more that I played, to critique somebody and say, you needed to play this specific way in this situation because that is what you need to do. Any other way is incorrect. Anybody that tells you that probably doesn't fully understand the game. There's multiple different ways to play hands, and in multiple different situations, more than one way is going to be profitable. And there's just so many variables in the game that you can't just say you need to always be 3-betting in this situation, or you always need to be flat calling behind, or you always need to be bluffing the river in this situation. There's just so many different unknowns and so many variables that you can utilize a multitude of different strategies, and different ones are going to work in different strategies, and they're both going to be profitable in different situations. For example, like the pocket queens here, flatting behind is going to be profitable. It's going to be plus EV, and so is 3-betting. And this is quite interesting. I'm never folding to a min 3-bet. And here's a perfect example of set mining, and now we have amazing pot odds. So we're getting 5-1 on our money, just actually a little better than 5-1 on our money. So I mean, it's a pretty easy call. Interesting flop. So and typically in set mining, when you don't hit your hand, you just want to give up. But we do have an overpair. I wouldn't be surprised if his range is composed of stronger pocket pairs as well as overcards. Now, when a loose passive opponent just mashes over a pot-sized bet on the flop, it's just an easy fold. So don't even have to think about it. Even though you have an overpair, it's just an easy fold. I don't be surprised if this guy has some sort of a combo draw. And he does with the 5s. So yeah, aces. I mean, pretty easy population read, and we're definitely going to take a note that and this is a pretty awesome situation, and of course, no need to slow play here. And seeing that the board is pretty wet, I'm actually gonna make a really exploitable play and just overjam the flop. I think that we could simply just do a standard raise, but I felt like this guy's potentially fish where he calls his guys jam and then he calls my 3-bet. So I figured might as well just make exploitable because he looks like a bad player and try to maximize my value by just over jamming and looking super fishy on the flop. Don't need to play standard way. Typically against bad players you can make these crazy plays and they're going to pay you off. Now we have a guy that looks like he is somewhere between a tag and a weaker type of opponent. Definitely not going to defend versus 3-bet. So it's just an easy fold. We're going to take a note on player 2 that and we're just going to label him as a fish as well. And that guy already left. That's unfortunate. So the fish came and went. King 5, you could 3-bet here. This guy is only stealing 22% of the time, so typically something that we're not going to be looking to attack. We don't know anything about him other than he plays. His looks like his stats are somewhat normalizing. It looks like he's more of a tag. So what I did was I tried to make this look like the Hold'em indicator HUD. Try to make it simple. I like the way that the yellow contrasts off the background on the green. Kind of sticks out. It's easy to read. And my stats are pretty self-explanatory. Number of hands, VPIP, PFR, aggression factor, their player name right here. I put this on here for people that are going to use this card catcher software. Let me pull this over. I put that on there because it wasn't correctly labeling the players. So I was playing and it was putting HUD stats in different spots for different people and you couldn't tell who was who. Even though it's anonymous, you really don't need this, but I decided to put it on here really small so I would make sure that it aligns to the proper person. Second one is 3-bet, fold to 3-bet, steal, fold to steal. Overall win percentage, I didn't put win to showdown because I just want to see in general in the session how often people are just winning regardless if it's showdown or not. Flop C-bet, turn C-bet, river C-bet, and this is pretty awesome. I'm just going to hit pot. Again, no point in making it any smaller. Anonymous play. And then fold versus C-bet, I just did flop and turn because I don't think we're going to get enough stats where we can get information on turns in terms of how much people are folding to 3 streets of C-bets. Interesting flop. We got a 58-26. Do we really have that much fold equity? We only have a gutter. Not really in love with the Nate hitting anyways, so going to check this flop. A 7-6 offsuit's pretty close to a button opening range. It's actually a bit outside of it, so I'm following this button opening range. Going to try to do my best to stick with suited junkier hands because they have a lot more playability and equity post-flop than off-suited hands. So a lot of people are probably just going to see that and think it's a mandatory open, but suited hands are going to have a lot more value in equity post-flop than unsuited just because of the flush possibility. So it's nice to see that I'm actually starting to get some hands. I haven't taken a bad beat yet playing back on Bovada, and I'm just wondering what's going to happen because I know it's going to happen. Just a matter of time. Taking a look at our opponent's stats. They've only raised 2 out of 15, but I think this is a pretty standard 3-bet. In the middle position, King Jack off. It's close. I'm going to open. And that's what I was afraid of with this pony. Is pretty nitty, but we don't have to automatically assume 3-bet we're going to get the money in. 4-bet flatting's fine as well. Saves us some money in the long run. And then when you see bets his flop, we'll just fold our hand. And this is an interesting situation. The 9's not the best turn card in the world, but we've got a 71-9. And then I'm just going to time bank with the queens. And fold. Fortunate he didn't call again. So I almost always expect when he 4-bets me there, he's either got kings or aces. And we're doing nothing more than set mining there and trying to hit a set of queens. And now what puts us in a very difficult situation is when it's something like a 10 high or a 9 high. That's when it really gets tough, because what do? Do we stack off when our reads are that our opponent, when he's playing a 38-19 game, and he hasn't 3-bet yet, but he 4-bets us in that situation? What do? Do we just stack it off at 5-0 with the queens? Probably we do, but we know a majority of the time we're behind, just because one thing we beat there is probably pocket jacks. We got a 41-6, got a pretty bad player. We do have top pair. So definitely just going to fire away. The 4 on the turn is a pretty safe card. However, if he does check raise us, we'll just fold our hand, just because bad opponents like that just don't play that way. And we have the boat here. I want to get some value, so I'm just going to bet 99 cents, just a little under half pot size bet, to get called by a 7. And I just want to make sure that I bet an amount that he can call. I just don't want to mash the pot button on the river. I want to make sure that he does call, because I'd rather get called a majority of the time with a half pot size bet than rarely get called with something like a full pot size bet. If he's only calling me like 20% of the time with a full pot size bet, if I mash it $2, and that's 40 cents. If he's calling me something like 80% of the time when I'm betting $1, then that's 80 cents in the long run. So you have to think about that. And let's pull his hand over here, not to be results oriented, but I mean, it's pretty easy to read what a fish has there. So he has the 7 and he's just calling down. I don't know if he is calling a pot size bet 20% of the time or 50% of the time, but I can't imagine that he's going to call a pot size bet that often versus a half pot size bet. He's definitely going to be calling a lot more. So hopefully you're starting to see a bit of a theme developing on these games, and that is these games really aren't a game of bluffing and trying to bet people out of the pot, but instead they're a game of extracting value from our opponents. Ace 10 suited, I don't recommend everybody opens this under the gun. I am going to open it for the video, but I think folding's fine. I had this guy labeled as a fish for some reason, so I think I'm going to call. Versus a reg, versus middle position open, ace jack off isn't really going to be that great of a hand to call, but versus a fish, I think it's perfectly fine to call. See a flop, try to make a strong hand and get paid off. He checks. He's only c-betting 20% of the time. I'm going to take a stab on the turn. I think we could have the best hand a certain percentage of the time. And we take it down. So some simple folds over here. And what do you want to do, buddy? Do you want to call? Or do you just want to let your clock just go all the way down and time out? And what I want to do is I want to kind of tweak my layout a little more. So I'm trying to get it so I can see my opponent's timers as well. And I think that looks pretty good. So against two opponents, we have 54, 21. Don't have any stats on them fold into C-bets. Don't have any stats on this opponent. We just don't have anything we can double barrel on here. I mean, I guess we could double barrel on an ace, a 10, a king, or a queen, but I would prefer that we at least had one diamond here to be stabbing at this pot out of position. So I'm going to check in this situation instead of actually stabbing at it. And then the turn is just even worse. Really doesn't change anything, so we'll just check again with the intention of giving up on this hand, trying to get to showdown, trying to hit a 10 or an ace on the river. And I just want to do some quick math. So when people look for spots to fire a continuation bet, let's say that you have one opponent in the hand that is folding, and I don't know why that decided to default over there. King 10 off. Not in love with completing this, to be honest, versus the button open, but I think we have to, especially when they're in the pot. And we just have too good a pot odds not to. But let's say that one opponent has 80% fold to bet. Actually, let's play this hand first, so I don't need to make it too big. One person is folding to C-bets 80% of the time. If one person is folding C-bets 80% of the time, then it makes sense if you're playing heads up to just fire on a flop like that where I check behind with ace 10 suited. But let's say you have two people with 80% of fold equity. What you have to remember is when more people are in the pot, you have to look at the odds of both of them folding, and you do that by multiplying their fold to C-bet stats. So it would be 0.8 times 0.8. And so let me put that in here. So if I do 0.8 times 0.8, and let me do this way because it's auto-focusing on the table, and whoa, I don't want to bet that. And so their combined fold frequency, if they're both folding 80% of the time, then they're both going to fold 64% of the time combined. We have a 68-7. He is not folding to any C-bets. It's only one. I am going to bet half pot on this flop. And when he calls, then I'm fine with giving up on the 4 being a blank. I think if a club hit, a 10, a jack, an ace, a 9, I think we could double barrel. At this point in time, I'm fine with just giving up and trying to get the showdown with my ace high. And when he bets, we'll just fold. So you have to look at both of them. So let's say one opponent, you see that one opponent is folding to 70%. Another opponent is folding to 40%. So we'd multiply both of those together, and we can expect both of them to fold only 28% of the time. So that's why C-betting into one opponent is a lot easier to get through than two opponents. Because even though if one of them has a high fold frequency and one of them has a marginal fold frequency, if you combine both of them together with combined probabilities, then it reduces. Even if we have 3 opponents that are folding 80% of the time, we'll multiply them together. Trying to get a bluff through 3 opponents, it's only going to work half of the time. And that's saying that they all are folding 80% of the time individually. I mean, if we bring it down to 70, now it's only going to work around 1/3 of the time. So that's why it's not really recommended to fire C-bets with really no equity into multiple opponents. You really need some sort of equity to be firing into more than one opponent. And that's typically backdoor equity is what you're looking for, or at least some sort of a draw on the turn. You want to have gutter or backdoor equity that will allow you to double barrel. We get 3-bet by a complete nit, so I am going to time back a little bit, but 18 hands, he has VIP of 6, a PFR of 0, aggression factor of 0, so easy fold. So some of you are probably wanting an update on the state of Ignition Casino Poker. So a bit of a quick update on the way that the games are running. When I first logged in, it was around somewhere between 10 and 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday night in California. And when I pulled the lobby over, and I'll just put it over here so I can still see my table, is that there were no 5 and L tables popping up that were available. And the only ones that were available were where nobody was seated or one person was seated. Ace 8 off when small blind is in. It's really close. I think we can defend. Let me take a look at my opponent's stat. He's folding 70% of the time. I think I'm going to defend for the video just because I think that we have enough equity to call there, especially when he calls. And we'll just take a check call line on the flop. I don't know if I'm going to call multiple barrels. I think I have the best hand decent amount of time here. I'm worried that this opponent decided to check to the razor with an ace, so I will call here. If he double barrels, I may actually fold. We're definitely not folding this river. Unless he just does something crazy. I don't think it's strong enough to raise because our kicker is terrible, so we have trip aces with the queen jack. So I think we're going to chop a decent amount of the time. And I don't think we get any additional value extracted by raising there against this opponent. So I figured he had some sort of an ace there a decent amount of the time, and so I felt that just calling there was fine. I didn't want to raise and have him re-raise and then put me to some terrible test where I'm way behind, tripped with any decent kicker. I'm chopping with any other ace, and I'm losing the boats. I'm losing two straights, so it's really not that great of a hand. It looks like it was that great, but in comparison to what he could have and what was on the board, I think calling there is fine. But getting back to the lobby, so when I first logged on, there were no tables at 5-0 running. It literally took me like 20 minutes to wait for some tables a little bit. 5-0, 10-0 was running, but now there's no 10-0 tables except for one. And look at that, just to show you, hey, look, I got quads, even though I didn't play that hand. So there's definitely not as much traffic as there used to be, but the games are still super soft, so, can't complain at all. And I wanted him to just go to showdown to see what he had. So if it does fold around to me, I'm not going to open with ace-3 off. Ace-3 off opening range looks something like this. And my opponent's only folding to 40% anyways. So far with this session, we've been going about 30 minutes on this video. I am going to quit at 30 minutes. I'll probably quit after this hand. But I'll pull my PT4 database over as well. So definitely I'm looking for a way to play my ace-jack off. And this is a perfect way to play it. So session 1, session 2, session 3, 26 minutes, 1 hour and 21 minutes. So far I'm at close to 40 minutes. One just over buy-in there. Here I played 10-0 and 5-0, so I'll just consider that 1.5 buy-ins, and here I'm just over half a buy-in. So yeah, things are going well. Games are soft, and there's really nothing special to playing these games, to be honest. I mean, it's just straightforward, solid poker. You don't need to be a crazy, aggressive, loose aggressive bluffer. Really just playing tight, aggressive, solid, conservative poker is what's going. Wow, quads! Look at that. Good job, buddy. So too bad I didn't play my jack because I could have shown we got quads on that table and like 2 times in less than orbit. But yeah, so at 5-L, really what you want to do is just play solid conservative poker and just look to extract value when there's an opportunity to extract value. Look for situations to take down the pot without going to showdown when there's the right opportunity. You don't need to strive to have this amazing red line that's a positive red line that's going like this at 5-L. It's just not necessary. I mean, my red line isn't going down crazy like it is, like it used to be when I first started to play, but I mean, it's not up here near being, I would say, at the break-even level of my red line. It's perfectly fine to have a negative red line. If you have a red line like this, it's going to be perfectly fine at 5-L and 2-L and 10-L. Now, once you start moving up past 10-L to 20-L and above, then things start to change. Oh, this is very interesting. Getting the money in, 10-7. I do understand his logic there, but it really isn't that great because there's a flush draw, there's a boat out there, there's a boat draw. It's just not that great. It just doesn't have that much equity in it. I mean, the guy was a 54-17, so really can't expect too much from him. But anyways, yeah, we are just over 30 minutes, so I'm going to end this video. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was entertaining, informative. If you like the video, please click the like button. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. And if you haven't been over at MicroGrinder Poker School, head on over to microgrinder.com and check out what we have. This is pretty close. I'm actually going to raise this board to extract value, and I guess we're going to play this hand. King Queen, just flat versus a cutoff open. This guy's playing pretty tight aggressive, and so here, when he does call, I'm just looking to get a bunch of money in the pot. And definitely going to be, I'm going to lead out on this one. And I'm just going to go all in. If he has a straight, good for him. He has 8, so yeah. And I am going to check this flop. I just don't love the ace. He calls. We hit a diamond on the turn. It's just the most terrible hand in the world. So I'm going to check. If he bets, I'll just give up at 5-L. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. And here, this is just a very simple fold. You could say, well, you have a redraw to a boat. Yeah, but I only have 4 outs for 8% equity, so, and he only has 375 behind. So I'm just going to fold and live to play another day. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. It's been Out with MicroGrinder Poker School, and I'll see you at the next video.